heart is so full from that video. You know, one of my visions as a minister is that the service be an energy, you know, where the music and the prayers and my words all encompass you into a message, and it's more than words, right? And Deb does such a great job with very little communication of just tapping in those this song we just had and our thoughts, our prayers are so in line with what we're going to talk about today. So I thank you. Even though you can't be here, you always do a great job, Deb. And I thank all of you, because your energy contributes to what we do here on Sunday. It's not just the minister. Well, I've always had a fascination with words, and my mom and I used to joke with words. We used to play games with words, and just little silly things like reading the engagement announcements that Rose Smith was marrying Danny Hose, and she was going to be Rose Hose. Those kinds of things we just had a lot of fun with. You know, we were very aware of words. And so we became, you know, that became something that bonded us. As the years have gone by, she's been gone more than 25 years now from my life. But she was also my first example of offering words in prayer. Every single day that I remember with my mom included her saying her prayers. Her prayers was a stack of like prayer cards and all these little things, and she kept them in an envelope, and the edges were worn thin. And she had made a vow when my brother Carl, who's 21 years older than me, was drafted into the service and went to the Korean War. She made a vow that she would say those prayers every day of her life in exchange for his safe return. Her prayer was answered, and she kept her vow. Well, it seems I've turned into my mother. Some ways that's not so good, right? But every morning my practice includes meditation and reading from spiritual scripts, and I hold in front of you the evidence. This is one thing that this is Michael Beckwith's 40-day Mind Fast Soul Feast. It's held together with a rubber band. And you can see that most of the print is worn off the cover. Maybe over 15 years of working with these prayers. Thanks, Mom.
Say the title of that again.
40-day Mind Fast Soul Feast. I think it's in a hardcover now. This is one of those things. We had a little bookstore back at the Unity Church that I worked at in Akron, Ohio, and I just found it, and it stayed with me. It's part of my everyday practice. So you can see that I have a deep roots in the practice of prayer, and I was raised with that idea that probably most or many of you were raised with, that there's somebody out there we're talking to and we're asking for something. And it took me a long time. It was an evolution in getting into Unity 30 years ago and getting to the place where I worked with prayer out of a space of oneness instead of a space of petition. My intentions for prayer differ from what my mom's were, but the energy behind the prayer is still the same. It's the energy of love. And that's where the power comes from in our words. It's not the words, it's the power, the intention of the heart. And you might wonder, I don't know, I wish I had the presence of mind before I lost Mom to ask her. But you might wonder that, doesn't this become words after a while? But my intention is it never does. And I have found more depth every time. Sometimes I go through the 40 days, 1 through 40, and sometimes I go through times where I just open and Spirit leads me to the message that I need for that day to inspire me. So it is our intention, it is our energy that plays into our prayers. More than words, right? Myrtle Fillmore, who's called the mother of unity and the co-founder of unity, she knew well the power of prayer. And her healing words not only affected her life, but many others still to this day. Sometimes I like to pick up a unity classic like this one, Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters. These old books, I'm a book lover, you must know that by now. And there's inspiration here in the founding of this faith that we practice and learn. And in this, you might remember that Myrtle Fillmore had tuberculosis and a variety of other ailments. And she was pretty much told that you come from a heritage of illness, and that's what you've got. And there isn't much hope for you. But she decided, she made an intention to not resign herself to that pronouncement of her fate. And she began to pray and to meditate, and she was given the inspiration to look for an answer that was greater than the pronouncement of the medical establishment. And she received. And she said this: "The thought came first to me that life was of God, that we were inseparably one with the Source, and that we inherited from the divine and perfect Father. What the revelation did to me at first was not apparent to the senses, but it held my mind above the negation, and I began to claim my birthright and to act as though I believed myself a child of God. Filled with His life, I gained, and others saw that there was something new in me, and they asked me to share. I did, and others were healed and began to study." That's our foundation, folks. I love it. Yes. In reading again the story of the foundation of unity, I gained a deeper realization, my own connection to love and to God, that Myrtle had opened herself to in prayer. I wasn't just reading the words. I had read those before. I mean, over 30 years in unity, of course I heard the stories. But I love that we evolve, and we get a deeper and deeper understanding and feeling within our beings of the truth that we are divine beings, and that we've inherited more than we inherited from the earthly life. Another mother, like mine, was sending her 2 sons off to war. It was the end of 2008. And she had the holidays ahead of her, and she knew that right after the holidays, 2 of her sons were being deployed, one to Afghanistan and one to Iran. So she said every year before that, she focused on her New Year's resolutions, probably from about the time of Thanksgiving. This year, 2008, it went right out the window. She was focused on her holidays. She was focused on her family. She was focused on creating memories. God forbid it would be the last time that they were together. I'm sure any mother can understand that focus. But it turned out that she said out of the blue one day before the holidays, she was standing in her kitchen, and her words are that she was frozen for a moment and she heard this drop into her spirit. New Year's resolution, pray for a stranger every day. Those words arose in her mind day after day as she went through the busy, emotionally filled holidays. And on the first of the year in 2009, she began a practice. And it took her places she never expected to go. Her book, her name is River Jordan, and her book is Praying for Strangers. It's an account of her experience, and it's really an inspirational read. I am donating this to our library because I ended up with 2 somehow, and I just feel that any of you would probably love to read this story, plus any of you that are thinking of joining our prayer circle might benefit from, might be inspired, let's say, from that. So she became alert in a way that she'd never been through this intention to pray for a stranger every day. She would be out in the world doing her grocery shopping or whatever ordinary thing we do, you know, and so she would be drawn to someone, and she would devote that day to prayers for that person. And I'll leave you to read the details of the captivating experiences that she had. But I really loved the way one reviewer summed up this book. She says, by means of story, anecdote, and calm persuasion, River Jordan suggests an unexpected remedy for both our cultural malaise and our sense of spiritual powerlessness. That we make a habit of praying not only for people we know, but for strangers, is an unheralded, untrumpeted gift of grace. The very act is compelling and quietly subversive in a culture where strangers equal threat and gifts demand notice. So, thus far we've looked at 3 examples of women who have been compelled by something beyond words to reach out with their divine energy and give as they were guided to give from the depths of their being. My mother devotedly prayed for her family. Myrtle Fillmore affected and continues to affect countless others with her prayer and her faith and her example. And River Jordan, with her book, inspires many to offer prayer and also realize that that energy is effective. Everything is energy. Thought begins it, your emotion amplifies it, your action increases the momentum. Every one of these women, whether they knew it or not, followed this pattern. A thought came to them, their compassion amplified it, and they took action to create an outcome. So what does this show us? To me, it's a very hopeful message. We have, by simply following our deepest promptings and living the divine that expresses through us, the ability to change the world. Each and every one of us has the power to do this. That song, Our Thoughts, Our Prayers, just meditating on that a little bit. Many of our thoughts are not positive. Many of our thoughts are critical or complaining. We're human beings. But when we see that and we make a choice to direct our energy in a different way, you begin to catch yourself and say, that's not what I want to create. Let's adjust. And just as simple as that, without judgment, you begin to make a difference in the world. as we develop spiritually, our responsibility deepens. It's no longer just to do and say the right things, which was a lot of my upbringing. I don't know about any of you, but if you say the right things and you do the right things and you get straight A's, that's all part of what we learn. But now, we've gone beyond that. We've evolved into a place where we realize that we have a portion of divine within us. And as we consciously choose to use that, then we become a power for good. I know I've said it before, but I won't stop saying it. I just encourage you to take that very seriously. You see, it's more than words. For me, a basic step towards evolving into that energy was positive, regular spiritual practice. Through this, I align myself again and again with the divine and remind myself of where I intend to come from. To that end, I began the study of this book called Soul Vows. Gathering the presence of the divine within you, through you, and as you is the subtitle. It's by Janet Connor. This book is so much more than just a good read. She leads us, she uses the paradigm of the chakras, and she leads us to explore the creative power of our unique self. And it's very personal. As we look within, each of us has a different drawing of our energy to where we want to devote that positive energy and where we want to direct our divinity. And she offers guides to help us explore that and find our unique place. For herself, she began to explore vows when she was going through the dissolution of her marriage. And she started to question, are there any vows that last forever? Are there any vows that last forever? And she says this in her prelude. I'm just going to read it to you. What your soul knows. There is a presence inside you. There is a presence inside everyone. Though you may have long ignored it, perhaps even willfully turned the other way, that divine presence is alive and well and growing. It is a pulse, silently tapping out the rhythm of the ancient dance of longing for something more, something bigger, something to mark your every step as holy, important, and good. The presence knows you. It knows who you are and who you long to be. It knows that the life of the divine is your life. The love of the divine is your love. The presence of the divine is expressed in, through, and as you. That presence is now calling you to step into its tender embrace, to learn the words and music and movements of your dance of divine presence, soul vows. Mm-hmm. From that place in the book, that prelude, she leads us on to discover our vows, to discover what voices within us. That's the same spirit as Myrtle Fillmore. She recognized her oneness with spirit, and she prayed from a realization of her divine inheritance of wholeness and fulfillment. It was the foundation and the model for affirmative prayer that we teach at Unity. On the unity.org website, in the description of our philosophy, it states this: Affirmative prayer is the highest form of creative thought. It includes the release of counterproductive negative thoughts, as well as holding in mind statements of spiritual truth. The release of fear, the release of worry, and the movement to affirmative, positive thought. Affirmative prayer is a process that's usually described in 5 steps. The first is recognition. Every Sunday we pray there is only one presence, one power, active in the universe and in my life, God, the good, omnipotent. That's recognition. We recognize that the love and the power of the divine is around us and within us, that we are connected to that. We are one with that. And then unification, which follows perfectly from that. We are one with that presence. This third step is declaration. In that step, we see the highest outcome that we can imagine, or we release it, knowing that we don't know. And we just open ourselves to the highest outcome for the situation. We offer our prayer. We focus on the positive, and that's the feeling step. That's the emotion that the love of my mother and the love of River Jordan and Myrtle Fillmore, love for, I think she had a greater vision than just for her own healing. That's the more than words step. That's where we connect into this heart, into this spirit, into our sense of compassion, even when we don't know the person we're praying for. We have compassion for the human situation. And then we release it and we know with thanksgiving that all is done and in divine order. Meister Eckhart said if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, it would be enough. It's a further affirmation of our trust and our faith in the divine. And then we release. I was taught in my early days of unity, I don't know if they do this anymore, to say this or something better. Or you can simply say, amen. So it is. Release it, and you know that is the highest energy that's in charge. Everything about that process of affirmative prayer is beyond words. It's an expression of our hearts, compelled by love, just like my mother and like Myrtle Fillmore and River Jordan. In truth, there are many ways to pray. And I think that's a very important point to keep in mind, especially for those of you that wish to participate in our prayer group. There are many ways to pray. Some pray through movement, through dance. Some pray through words. Some pray through song. I've heard of a person that is a part of the prayer team in our Akron church that takes the names and has them on a piece of paper and puts them in her pocket when she goes for her daily walk. So she holds that positive intention in a very sacred way through that process. Even in silence. Even just in being in silence is a way to pray. It's offering your energy in an intentional way to lift up ourselves and to lift up those we love. In the book Soul Vows, Janet Conner says, don't just say your prayers, be your prayers. For me, the real power of prayer comes from the heart and the soul. It comes from a desire to connect with something greater and to see the possibilities that are out of my realm of experience. Everything is a possibility through the love that we have been given. St. Francis of Assisi said, there are beautiful and wild forces within us. In prayer, we move into that energy of the Christ, uniting with our divinity, seeing the possibility of that divinity expressing through every situation. And it's truly a practice that is more than words. Namaste. For our meditation time, I'd like us to just experience this affirmative prayer process. So if you'll just center yourselves quietly. If you desire to close your eyes, sometimes that helps us to just focus the energy within. And you might want to bring to mind a person or a situation that you would like to offer this energy to. And as you move into this quiet place, start with the recognition that there is only one power, and that power is good. And we are one with that power. We recognize the divine presence. That divine presence is present now for each and every one of us in our hearts as we offer our love energy to whatever intention has come into our consciousness in this moment. We recognize that that is a presence bigger than all circumstances, and it contains them. It holds whatever this is, pure light, pure love. Just take a moment with that step, expanding that light from your heart, embracing this situation or this person in your deep love, in your oneness with the divine. We recognize that we are one. We allow that to sink into our consciousness, that fact of unification that we claim for ourselves now as we are here in this moment. We feel ourselves completely one with the all good, with the divine presence, the Christ energy. And now focusing on the positive, perhaps we have an idea of what the best outcome is for this person or this situation. We move into the feeling step of this process. And we feel our love just encompassing this situation. We see freedom. We see peace. We see abundance. Knowing that it's all available in the divine realm. And we can even imagine how we will feel, or how our loved one will feel when they're released into this place of peace, abundance, love, and freedom. We feel it. We see the end result. We see the joy, the freedom, the peace. It fills us. It fills the focus of our prayer. Let's take a moment to focus on that feeling right now. Let joy rise up. And as we fully enter into that feeling, of answered prayer. We say thank you, thank you, thank you, divine, loving Spirit. You fill our every need. Your wisdom now contains all of this situation. Your wisdom, which is all love. And now we release this or something better, dear God. Amen. And so it is.